Today on Top Gear Rearview, Jeff got smoked by like an 89 Integra one time.
I got smoked by an 89 Integra one time.
And I speak Welsh. Estra drachta.
Welcome everybody to Top Gear Rearview. I'm Jeff Lodahl. On the other side of the mic here is Brady Kirkwood, and tonight we are into the second episode of the first series of the new Top Gear.
The episode aired on the 27th of October, and the guest was Jamiroquai's own JK.
And in tonight's episode, we go through the Focus RS. We see how many motorbikes a bus can jump. The kind of quick car for the episode is the Noble M12 GTO. And Richard waxes eloquent about the Ford the Escort RS1800. So getting right into it, buddy, the RS is a car that I quite enjoy, and it just made its way over to the U.S. So this is actually a nice timely thing again, because this was kind of the first time that I think the RS badge made it onto the Focus across the pond. A solid, what would this be, 15 years ago?
It seems like, I guess this particular car, the RS badge made it across 15 years ago. But the RS has been around since the mid-70s. RS,
yeah.
It's like the BMW M,
Yep.
And so we haven't ever had an RS, have we?
The first one is the Focus. The one that is the new Focus RS, which came over here as a 17.
So, we're talking like 40 years plus.
Yeah, it's been a good while, because they go back, I think, into the 60s. So it's been quite a while. Now I think RS stands for Rally Spec, but I'm not really sure. And now I'm looking it up, and I'm gonna have trouble finding it.
I believe there's been STs though over here before.
There have, and
okay.
that's a relatively recent one too. I think those would go back into like the 2012 time. It does stand for the Rally Sport.
There you go.
And yeah, so that was kind of the hot version of what we got, but the difference, it's funny because that actually compares nicely to what they tested in this episode. We got a Focus ST and a Fiesta ST, both of which were small turboed 4-cylinder front wheel drive. Very good cars, but the RS is kind of a different beast. So jumping into it, what'd you think of the car? I guess you know this car probably better than I do, because you lived over there.
Yeah, the RS is. Yeah, I like those a lot. They're, I guess the one thing they had bad to say about it was a torque steer, and that's what I've heard that has been bad about it. But other than that, the whole package, the small, usually hatchback type of Fiesta or Focus, plus just the ungodly amounts of power for that size of car, just stupid amounts of power, and really some pretty good engineering to get some of that power down to the road, even with the jumpy diff. I've really liked it. It's seems like a lot of fun to drive. I never did get to drive one, but I saw a lot when I was in Scotland.
Yeah, the hot hatch is definitely like a European-born thing, and we got our share of them over here now, but it seems like they've had them for a lot longer. So, did you look into the differential at all?
I did not. No.
I was kind of curious what it was that actually was kind of causing that. It's called a quaife differential. It's torque biasing, so basically it doesn't fully lock the wheels together, and it will bias the torque to the wheel that has wheel spin, or actually, if it works in reverse when you're braking too, and it will bias the brake power to the wheel that is not locked up. So it's kind of interesting in that way. Now, looking at kind of a video or a picture of this thing, it is intricate. There are a bunch of helical gears floating in their own little pockets, and the thing looks like a steampunk something or other. But yeah. From the sounds of it, the gears can kind of move around a little bit, and that I think is part of why it was a little jumpy. But yeah, this has been in the RSs for a while. I think it's in the current RS as well. But it's a good diff. It just has its quirks.
Is this something that's doing it based upon like measurements? Is there a computer controlling this, or is this all hardware?
Nah, this would all be it's all mechanical.
All right, so I guess that might be the reason why there's quite a bit of torque steer, because it's not able to. If the wheels are spinning at the same rate, then it's just gonna let it go. Presumably, it's just gonna let the equal power to both wheel. And so it's not going to try to counteract the torque steer with the torque vectoring, I guess.
It does. It's better at. There's less torque steer than a straight open diff, for sure. But there's still it's not all done away with. That is kind of the Achilles heel of a front wheel drive hot hatch or a front wheel drive hot car at all. They tend to get a decent amount of torque steer because you're asking those front wheels to do a lot.
You're doing a lot with them, yeah. And you start putting down this is 212 horsepower. You start getting up even higher. You do even a little bit of work to it. You're starting to get damn near 250, 300 horsepower. And it's just, you're really trying to have to fight it.
Yeah. So they had two comparison cars there. They had the Impreza, that was the WRX, which was the first year of that body style called the Bug Eye, and they also had the Civic Type R. So those were, I gotta say, the lap times are pretty impressive. 138 for the Civic, 139 for the WRX, which is with the all-wheel drive, they're a bit slower around the track, despite it being the most powerful of the three. And then the RS with a 133, that is smoking.
Yeah, it's interesting that it was so much faster, and I believe during the Drive Around Wales review that he had, he commented that
it doesn't have the same straight line oomph as a Subaru Impreza. In fact, from 0 to 100 miles an hour, this is 2 seconds slower.
Yeah,
that's all power. But I mean, you would think with adding in the all-wheel drive that it'd have a little bit more cornering ability and keeping the speed up.
I've had that engine, that 2-liter engine. I've had a couple of those, the WRX variants, and I gotta say, it's you don't get a lot of power below 3,000 RPM. It's a boggy engine, so there were times when if you blow it and you bog it at a light, you're kind of. I got smoked by an 89 Integra one time because I wasn't paying enough attention. I got him, by about 30 miles an hour, but
but it took a while.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, these cars all. They're actually still existing today. So at the time, the Focus was at 212 horsepower. The WRX was at 227, and the Civic Type R was 197. Front-wheel drive on the Focus and the Civic, obviously, and WRX was all-wheel drive. So comparing that to today's number, the WRX has a pretty modest increase. It's at 268 now. It went from a 2-liter to a 2.5. The Civic Type R had a pretty big jump from 197 to 305.
Okay.
The Focus RS went from 212 to 350.
Wow.
So it is a monster at the moment. I mean, I hear they're actually kind of hard to drive because they're just raw and there's a lot of power there.
350 is a lot for even just that weight of car.
Yeah, it is now all-wheel drive.
You gotta be on top of it. You gotta be on. It is okay.
They switched it over to all-wheel drive, but I hear it's nice. It's pretty stout suspension, so you could kind of jangle around. And but yeah, with the all-wheel drive, I mean, the ST, like I said, is front-wheel drive. This definitely needed the all-wheel drive platform. Interestingly, so this was, I think, right around 20,000 pounds at the time, and by our numbers, that would today translate to a little over 40, probably 41 and a half. And the current RS starts at 35, so it's actually come down a little bit in price relatively.
20,000 seems like a lot for that car.
Yeah,
I mean, you get a lot more car for that money now too. I mean, you get a lot more power. You get all-wheel drive. You're probably getting a lot more creature comfort on the inside.
For sure.
He said they didn't even have cup holders. He also said...
And like a normal Focus, there's no cup holder. There's nowhere to put my can of piping hot coffee.
Ford put out a car? Like just a regular, everyday jabroni car that didn't have cup holders?
Yeah, I just have a hard time believing that. I like that he had a can of hot coffee, though. I don't understand.
Where does that come from? Coffee.
Yeah, and just chuck it in the back.
Well, threw it in the microwave, got it hot.
Nice little sparky.
This is, of course, when Jeremy is driving around Wales because there's no people there. He's just able to let it loose on all the B roads in that country. And I'm going to have my hand at trying to pronounce the name of the town that he was in.
With no vowels, right?
There are exactly 3 vowels, unless you count Y. Then there are 4.
Okay.
And
let's hear it.
we're gonna try to get a clip of Jeremy. So here is Jeremy saying it, and here's me. Estradrachta. I think that was it.
That sounds like a lot of throat.
There's a rolled R and there's a in there. But I'm pretty sure if this pronunciation guide is correct, then I am correct. I think I hit it. I'm not going to do it again. Right. One and done. That's it.
Done. We'll call it. All right. So we need to find like a Welsh guest and be like, can you pronounce this town for us? Just call up. Maybe we'll just call up the embassy sometime next week and be like, just pronounce it.
I mean, I have to say though, a comment on the British B road versus what we would have here as the American rural road or county road it is vastly, vastly different. Driving on those roads, I had a regular old, plain old jabroni Fiesta. Just a regular Fiesta. And it was so much fun driving in the backcountry of Scotland. There are so many corners, and there's a lot of hills, and you could really take the whole 3 liters of engine that I had up to its limit and just chuck it around. And, there's a little bit of a thrill because there's the roads are not 2 cars wide. They are 1 car wide, and you're throwing around pretty quick. Compare that to driving on here I guess both of us are from the west of the United States. I don't know, maybe it's a little different in the Northeast, but it's just a bunch of straight, boring dirt roads. Just straight.
So, you're just not in the right place. Don't go out to the countryside. You go to the hills.
Yeah, but I suppose.
Some of the best driving roads I've ever been on are right above Fort Collins there, sir. I can point you in that direction. So I've had some fun up there.
I guess that's the thing is those B roads in the UK, those are everywhere. You don't have to try to go anywhere.
True. Yeah, you got to look for them here. A lot of the county roads here are long and straight.
They're just straight grid to divide up farms. That's all there are.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Anything else in the Focus?
Estradrifta.
I don't. It sounds good to me. I didn't know that Welsh was a language. So
yeah, there you go. No, just a few things. I like to point out some of the metaphors, or what's the other thing?
Similes.
That Jeremy pumps out. This one was corners like a cartoon.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I don't exactly know how a cartoon corners, but apparently
I would just assume like unreasonably quick. It's just you're not governed by the laws of gravity in cartoons.
I know, that's all I got. I think I really do like the Focus RS. 350 nowadays though is a lot of horsepower. I mean, that's for $35,000 starting there. That's a pretty good deal. Seems like a pretty good deal.
It's like $100 a horsepower.
It's not bad at all.
I have not had a chance to drive one of those. I really do hear the sweet spot. It's funny hearing different people. The autocross sweet spot is the Focus ST. There are some guys that I've raced with that are just beasts in those cars. I mean, just routinely bringing home they have multipliers based on your power and your kind of expected time, and they will routinely with the multiplier just be the winner of the day. So, and then the Fiesta I hear is just a bargain. Like, it's a lot of car for the money. It's got a ton of power. It actually gets good mileage, and it's like $20,000.
Yeah, it's I had a really actually good time driving it. I don't know if I would have liked it as much in America. It's small. I couldn't really carry anything in it, but in the United Kingdom, it was right there. It was perfect. I could park wherever I wanted. And it was a lot of fun to drive. It really was a lot of fun to drive. And I can definitely understand. I mean, the RS are not the only Ford cars that have relatively good handling. I think they're across the line are good handling cars. And so I can see some of that bleeding down. The Fiesta ST and the Focus ST, I bet those are great at that autocross. RS is probably a little too much car, yeah?
It might be. It's more of a track car than an autocross, like a tight corner car. But there's a secret one. I don't know if they make it anymore, but they did for a while. It was a 3-cylinder turbo. The Fiesta, what was it called? It was the EcoBoost, but it had a different name. But it was like the littlest engine, and I got to drive one of those once. I was considering one because it gets just stupid good mileage, and it's actually a lot of fun because it's a little turbo on a little engine, so you get like it's fun enough that it keeps you entertained, and you're getting 40 miles per gallon on the highway easy. So yeah, there are some nice little gems in the Ford lineup, and it's good to see that the lineage has finally made it across the pond here. All right, on to the news.
The news. We talked last time. You made a slight comment. I believe it made it into the episode about how you said that wankles just don't work.
Yeah.
Why not?
They're just so. If you think about how a reciprocating engine works, your typical piston engine. I mean, you need to have essentially a seal of some kind that allows you to have a combustion chamber, which is your piston rings. And obviously your valve seals and all that too, but primarily your piston rings. That's what's allowing that piston to be forced up and down. Yes. Is you do create pressure because they are a tight enough seal. Now on a wankle, you have the seal on the outside of the rotors. because what's happening is that combustion chamber is moving with the with the rotor itself, kind of. So what happens is you have these seals that they're just subjected to a lot more wear because they're just continually going in the same direction, just spinning around, and then versus a reciprocating engine, you got it up and down and up and down, so at least you get even wear on both sides. And what happens is you wear those seals out in relatively short order, which requires an engine rebuild. I've heard as early as like 80,000 miles.
Oh, okay. So in terms of, do they have lower compression?
I don't know offhand. I think it might actually be a little higher, because you get a lot of power out of a little wankle. Like, the
RX-8 he said was 1.3 liters and had 250 horsepower.
Yeah,
that's
and I think a lot of the older RX-7s were in that same 1.3. I think there was a 2.2 as well, depending on how many rotors. The nice thing is you can just kind of stack rotors, or just, basically the way, there are guys that build these, and it's kind of an interesting engine design that's semi-modular that you could just, like, put another rotor on.
Just more engine. How much more engine?
Yeah.
5 more engines.
Just, like, stacking on pistons, like, smushing 2 V6s together like Aston does. But, so they are, in terms of, like, power density, like, power per liter, pretty high. But it comes at a cost, and it's funny because there was, for the longest time, the RX-8 was never a great car. It was always an okay car, but it was a little light. It never got great mileage either. I don't think they're particularly efficient. So it was kind of like, this is going to be what kills the rotary. And there's, as always, there's still talks. Mazda, I think, has not given up completely. So we'll see. They're an admirable car company for just keeping with some crazy ideas.
We got all this tooling that we don't want to write off, so we're gonna make another one.
We're just going to keep doing this.
A quick note, they talked about the RX-8 in the news. They also talked about the Touareg, the VW, which is now very much a thing. I think it was just a concept back then, or just come to market.
Yeah, it was essentially it's a Cayenne.
Yeah. They said there was a V10 diesel.
Yeah, which is, as I heard that, I was like, I remember seeing this. I think I have a friend that owns one, but I was like, that is a lot of cylinders for a diesel.
That's a lot of cylinders for a diesel.
Because most big truck diesel, or like, school bus diesels, a lot of them are at a 5.9 liter Cummins. That's a 6. And even my bus is an 8. Like, there's not a lot of V10 diesels in, like, especially passenger cars.
Yeah, it's something that's small. It's really interesting. I guess you minimize the cylinders, you can get a better combustion in a smaller area, maybe?
Maybe.
Is it an efficiency sort of play?
It very well could be. I don't know a lot about that motor. But yeah, that did ring a bell. It kind of raised my eyebrow. I was like, I knew that engine was there, but I never really thought about it.
I guess you could also, argue that you could really kind of crank up the compression ratio even more in a diesel with a smaller surface area. I'm not sure.
You could beef up your cylinder walls and everything a little more. So in theory, you could crank it up and have less likelihood to explode your whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What'd you think of that MG?
I didn't like the way it looked, but 965 horsepower is just a stupid amount of horsepower.
Yeah, I can get behind that. It's called the X-Power SV, for what it's worth. They only ever made 82 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, so very low production, but I was kind of with I think Hammond said it, like, there's a lot of grills.
There's
and
a
stuff
lot
going
of
on.
grills.
That many horsepower, you need a lot of cooling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, and then we're going to take a side to talk about British politics for a second.
All right.
We're going to talk about the M4 bus lane, because I know this will come up on many, many, many more Top Gears to come. There's a stretch of highway, interstate, as we would call it in America, motorway in the UK, going from the east side of London to Heathrow. It's 3.5 miles of road that went from 3 lanes down to 2 lanes, and then back to 3 lanes when we got to London. And so the traffic was terrible. And instead of widening the road, which is what I think most everyone would want them to do, they were getting a lot of complaints that the buses were getting stuck in traffic and putting all their buses behind. So they introduced the M4 bus lane, which took advantage of there not really being that much shoulder room, so you could slam another lane in there. But if you restrict it just to buses, you're kind of limiting your liability and people getting a bunch of crashes and stuff like that. Not that the government's liable for that sort of thing. So they added this bus lane, and I'm trying to find the cost. But what it did is it added a lane, so everyone still had to deck down to 2 lanes. And then it was on the on the fast lane side. So the bus would get on the motorway. It'd have to cross 2 lanes of stopped traffic to get to its bus lane, to go 3 miles, and then cross 2 more lanes of stopped traffic to get off again.
Oof.
And yeah, exactly. And so it was a huge political and, I guess, citizens uprising that they hated this thing. Is the M4 bus lane. I think it cost some millions of pounds to make, and there was never a bus in it because they could never get over quick enough to then have to get back over quick enough to get off where they were going to get off.
Yeah,
and so the fact that Jeremy said he finally saw a bus in the bus lane, I'm sure there's buses going in the bus lane all the time, but it was just a disaster PR-wise for the UK.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It has been since scrapped, so there's no more bus lane. But
That
it ran from 99 to 2010, and then reinstated temporarily for the Olympics in 2012. I guess because there were a hell of a lot of buses come from the airport.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, that's good to know. I had no idea. I didn't follow that conversation at all, so it's good to hear.
I remember hearing that a lot on Top Gear and during the news in the future, so I just like to bring that up and just say that we are aware of it.
All right. So how about that bus jump?
Well, I think we should talk about the bus jump at the end.
Well, they tease it like a bunch of
buttholes. But no, okay, let's talk about it now. No, that was a dick move. It was a real dick move.
It was.
Let's talk about it now. They showed the guy who is inexplicably not Evel Knievel jumping something on a motorcycle. I don't know who this jabroni is. I guess he's
it's probably a British guy that just selects up jumping motorcycles.
Sir Evel Knievel III. And he jumped some buses, but I have to admit he was going real fast. But the jump was like way up at the bus level. Like he didn't get very much air over the buses.
No, he jumped with he jumped a pit that they just happened to put some buses in.
He jumped really low and fast. And it really didn't look very exciting, I have to say.
No.
It wasn't there wasn't any fireworks, there wasn't any pre-jump mechanical issues that they were playing up to make it seem more dramatic. There was none of that. But he jumped 14 buses, and they looked like double-decker buses, so his jump was like way up in the air, like 20 feet in the air, and he landed like 20 feet in the air, and he only got like 6 or 7 feet above that. So I have to say,
a hover jump.
Not impressed. Almost as not impressed as I am by the potential or by the future bus over bicycles jump. It was
bus over motor bicycles.
Motorcycles. Sorry, motor bicycles. That's right. I really messed up my joke on that one. But yeah, I mean, I think that early Top Gear is kind of trying to keep people engaged. So they said, "Hey, let's jump some motorcycles with a bus." But we're going to tease it throughout the whole episode so everyone stays to see this failure of a bus jumping motorcycle.
It's a really anticlimactic jump.
I mean, unless it's not.
No.
Stay tuned to Top Gear Rearview for the thrilling conclusion.
Well then, I suppose on to the Noble?
Yeah, let's quit talking about that. Let's talk about the Noble.
That's the cool car.
Exactly. This is the power lap.
So you want to start with the power lap time? Because I thought this was interesting.
Sorry, I was getting some beer. Yeah, I mean, I guess it ran in the wet to very wet. 132.9, which they rounded up to 133.
Yeah, which is the same as the Focus RS, given that was in the dry.
It is. It's also, was it 4 seconds slower than the Murcielago?
Yeah, which is about the differential with the rain. Which,
Yep.
So about even with that. Now the thing that blew me away about this car is the price.
Like 40,000 pounds.
40,000 pounds? That's nothing.
It's really nothing. It's really, I mean, I guess that's the point of this Noble Motorsports, and we can talk about that a little bit right now if you want. But it was started by a guy named Lee Noble, and Jeremy said it in his review. He says,
where it's taken to a shed where a man called Lee fits it with a Mondeo engine.
This guy's name is Lee Noble, and he is in Leicestershire, which is outside Leicester, I presume, or is the county that Leicester is in. And he got to start like in the 80s, like making race cars. and he was an automotive engineer. I don't know exactly where he worked before that. I couldn't really find that. But he started making race cars in the 80s, and then he moved on kind of as his own company. Not really Noble Motorsport yet, or Noble Automotive yet. But he started making replicas. So he started making replicas of like the Ferrari F33 P4, which is a race car, and the Lotus 15, which I'm looking at right now. We can put some pictures.
Which is also a race car.
Yep. Which I presume is also a race car. Oh, yeah. It's a really... Oh, look at that thing. We definitely got to put a picture of the Lotus 15.
Now I got to Google it.
Ew, look at the curves on that thing. But he started making replicas. So he would take existing designs of known cars, race cars. I'm not sure if he was making them for like single type race circuits, like a bunch of people go out there with their Lotus 15s and go racing against each other, or just for enthusiasts to buy. So he started making the recreations, and then he figured, you know what, I'm going to start to make a road car. I want to make a road supercar type of thing. And he started making one, and he made the Ascari FGT. So Ascari is a name that you probably are familiar with. It's a similar thing to Noble, kind of a cheap, out-of-a-shed supercar maker. But Noble made the first Ascari. It was his body and chassis design, and he sold it off to somebody. That's all the bio said, is he sold it off. And he went back to making race cars, but he had whet his appetite, and so then he started making his own road supercars again under the brand Noble, and the M12 was the first successful one. He started with the M10, a few sales, started making the M12 after that as a progression, and then kind of jammed onto the scene, was getting all sorts of magazine covers and notoriety and Top Gear reviews and stuff like that. And that's kind of how he got his start, and sadly, 2009, Noble shut its doors. He went on to found another company called Phoenix Automotive.
Okay.
And I haven't seen anything about it.
That's a good name for,
exactly
restarting a car company. I like it.
So.
All right. Well, that's, I've always loved the lines of the Noble, and I can understand, that looking at that Lotus 15, like the dude if he's making replicas of that, he knows, a nice swoopy, pretty car design. That
Lotus is really swoopy. And you know what? So is the Ferrari F33 P4. It's the same. Yeah. It's not that E-type style. But, I like the look of the Noble. I like the profile. I think he probably could have done a little better with the headlights. They just are off. I don't like the really inset headlights. It makes it look really kit car to me. Like, really. It makes it look like it's a 40,000-pound supercar trying to compete with the big boys. It's like, you know what?
It is.
Well, it is, but we're just going to skimp on the headlights. Just throw some round ones in there.
Yeah.
Well, how are we going to mount them on this nice sloped front? I just inset them in the back. It doesn't matter. But that being said, looks aside, looks like a hell of a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. For 40,000 pounds. So I was looking, I tried to find some rivals in terms of price and performance and whatnot. Nothing comes close for price.
I mean,
it's just so cheap. Like the NSX, I was like, maybe that'll be in the same ballpark. The NSX Type R is the same kind of horsepower range. It's 3 times as much.
I mean, Clarkson said the Ferrari F355, which I'm assuming, since it's a Ferrari, doesn't cost 40,000 pounds.
Oh, no, I'm sure it's over 100.
Yeah, and then he also said the Lotus Elise, which I think might be less than 40,000 pounds.
It would be right in that range, because I want to say they start 50-ish US, so yeah, it wouldn't be too bad.
But I have to say, I think the Lotus Elise has a lot less power and a lot less speed.
Yeah, it's a different kind of car. I mean, it seems like this one did have enough. It was a twin-turbo 6, putting down 310 horsepower. So, I mean, it's not crazy for the day, especially like considering the Zonda was the last one. But that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of horsepower.
Yeah, I thought its 0 to 60 time was 4.4, which is fine. Good.
That's scooting right along.
Top speed is only 165, so he's definitely limited on his top speed.
It's aero limited for sure.
Which, I mean, when you're trying to compete with the big boys, is a mark against you. But when you put top speed to dollars, again, the value for money out of this thing is really, really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it looked like it was really fast. I'm really disappointed. I'm always super disappointed when a power lap gets it done in the rain.
I know
they have a schedule and they have to do it when they have to do it, but God, I would love to see this thing get down there in the Pagani Zonda type range. It might have been close. beat the.
Yeah, what was... I'm looking back at the Zonda now to try to remember what it was. It was fast as hell.
Yeah, 123.
123, so 10 seconds.
Yeah. So you take, what they say, about 4 seconds for the rain. So like
128.
128.
No, 129 is probably where this would end up. But, man, yeah.
Yeah. That would have been really cool to see it go around. And I think later on, they'll have a different Noble M600, which is kind of their super car version.
Yeah.
Cheap supercar. I think they have that around the track, and we'll see what that goes.
All right. So how about that hat?
Man, dude, JK, Jamiroquai didn't get as much press in the United States as it does in the United Kingdom. But the one thing I know about Jamiroquai is that their singer wears the weird hats. And
yes,
he did not disappoint coming onto the program this time.
Oh, man, that was a good one. This is his first of 4 appearances in the series.
I think he's a huge... I mean, he's probably a similar thing over there to, like...
Timberlake?
No.
No.
You threw me off with that. I was gonna say Rowan Atkinson is like a real a real car guy in
a real petrolhead.
in a entertainer's body. You know, the comparison I would draw probably to America is probably Jay Leno, as much as you want to draw from that, but sounds like a real car guy sitting there listening to these guys talk about the cars that they had at the. I had to really do some research to understand what the hell they were even talking about.
Oh, come on! I pulled up the list that he listed off, and all but one I knew.
Well, I did not know like the words he was saying when he was talking about the BMW. Like as soon as I
the concourse.
Yeah, it's like the concourse, and I'm like, what the hell is that? So
to be fair, I have a buddy who has owned a few 2002s.
Okay.
That is one of my favorite BMWs of all time. But so for anybody that doesn't know, concourse is like a specific type of car competition in which you basically try to make a car as pristine and as close to original as is humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
So there are, I think they do a competition. There are a few in the like later series where Clarkson, Hammond, and May go and like try to take cheap cars, challenge cars to concourse competitions and see how bad they do. And they have some doozies.
Yeah.
But true concourse is like it's all about the details. I mean, everything's got to be perfect and everything's got to be period and correct. And it's a very unique type of auto show.
That generation of BMW, I love. I think it's the styling. They always have those front kind of diffuser looking things, but I think it's the fact that the top of the front of the hood overhangs the bumper, like it's out overhead. I love that look. It's really aggressive.
Oh yeah,
it looks so good.
The 6 series of that era has that like hard, like the shark nose. God, those are wonderful looking cars. They talked about a little bit the CSL, but so he mentioned 6 cars.
Okay.
So I wanted to see, did you write or do any research on those?
I just looked up what the hell he was talking about. That's the research I did. That's as much as I could get by. Like, what the 2002? What is the 2002 Turbo? I don't know. I didn't know what that was. So hit me with it.
The Merc Pullman is the one that threw me. I was like, what the hell is that? It is an old 600. So that would kind of qualify all the way into like the current. It's actually sort of been remade as a Maybach these days.
Yes.
But it's a long body 4-door 600. So it's basically a luxury super sedan, like really almost limo, but not like stretch limo.
Okay.
So nice, classy old car. The 550, that's a V12 Grand Touring Ferrari.
Yes.
The Maranello, gorgeous car.
Yeah, I got the Ferraris.
Okay, yeah. The Miura, they bring one of those on, I think, the next episode. And the Miura is one of my favorite Lamborghinis. I think that is just an unbelievably good-looking car. The 360 Spider, which is in contrast to the last one, I hate that car. I hate the 360.
You hate the 360?
I think that is just a dog of a Ferrari. I've never driven one, and I probably never will. But I just compared to what came after it, because you go into the F430 and then the 458 and then the 488. God, it's just like looking at those in a row. It's like the 360 was just a dog, like just an ugly one. So. The DB5, unbelievably gorgeous. Aston,
oh my god, the DB5 just out of this world.
Yeah, classic Aston. Like just that's a Bond car if I've ever seen one. And then the 2002. So it was a good list. So 148.1, that's what he ended up doing. Was it in the wet? I forget.
No, he was dry.
Okay, yeah. The next episode they is the wet.
He
one.
was dry, and he was the fastest one so far, including Clarkson.
He beat Clarkson by about 2 seconds, if I remember right.
Besides the Stig, and he missed the Stig by about 2 seconds.
Yeah. Which Stig was this? Do you remember? It wasn't Collins, was it? Collins was the second.
Yeah, I did not know who first Stig was.
I don't remember who Black Stig was. But yeah, we'll have to look that up.
Racing driver Perry McCarthy.
Okay.
Appeared in the first 22 episodes.
Oh, really? So he goes into series 3, maybe. All right. Anything else on JK?
I found his interview really hard to listen to.
Yeah.
He mumbled a lot, and he had
He
just
did.
enough accent for me to go.
What? Yeah. I hadn't seen this one in a long time, and I gotta say his later appearances are. I always liked him. I thought he was a great. It seems like him and Clarkson get along really well, so this was kind of obviously early in that, but yeah, I agree. It was kind of a meh interview. I don't have a lot of notes, just the cars.
Let's talk about this Escort RS1800.
Oh, I wanted to talk about the dealer's corner, and only just to say that I cannot believe they kept this around for so long. Because holy God,
I do not want to. I don't even write down stuff for the dealer's corner.
The only thing I did right is they had a weird little mini segment where they kind of made fun of a guy who sent in a video to try to be a presenter.
They did.
And he was talking about instrument panels, and then they went into dealer corner, and I was like, Jesus, you let this guy on. Putting that right after that, I was like, no, this is not better. I'm kind of more interested in instrument panel guy than what will immediately become obsolete as soon as this airs.
Hashtag bring back Gaza.
All right, that's all I got. Boring as hell.
I mean, it's. I don't know if they're trying to be informative for their UK audience, but what it does is it puts a little bit of a shelf life on your episodes.
It really does, yeah. 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 All right, that's all I got on that. So yeah, let's get into the RS. First, one quick thing. The RS Club kind of ran through this whole episode, and I quite enjoyed it. When Clarkson steals the old Escort and takes it for a lap.
Yeah, I mean, they were making fun of him a bit. They're like...
It's quite funny how we never said drive fast. We just want to get some shots.
just
That's
drive round.
their idea of normal driving.
Just here.
Look at that, look at that.
It's like, what the hell else are you thinking RS
Yeah.
Club's gonna do? I'm going to drive that thing as fast as I can.
I'm gonna try to put it into the weeds. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about this 1800. I really like the look of that era of Escort. I guess in the UK, that's not what the US Escorts looked like.
I don't believe so. I believe we didn't really get the cool Escorts ever, really.
No, our Escort looks awful.
Yeah, it's a dog.
a
I like
real
that
dog.
one. So that's a second gen. I prefer the first gen. I
Okay.
think that it's a little shorter, a little taller. So shorter in terms of length, taller, height. And I don't know if you watched all the Fast and the Furious movies, but there's an RS1600 in Fast and the Furious 6, and it's one of my favorite cars they've ever had on the movie franchise.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I agree. I think it's still a very good-looking car. I could totally understand why Hammond wanted one.
Yeah, and I think it's got a little bit of a heritage, a rally heritage behind it, which is always nice to see that sort of thing filtered down. It's always great, that sort of where, you're watching NASCAR, and I know they try to make them branded, or you watch F1 where they don't at all. But if you can go and watch something where your car is actually racing, and it's not like an Aston Martin or a Viper or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
It's an Escort that you can go buy at the Ford dealership for, your weekend job money. I always like that sort of thing. I like to see those driven around. And I guess that's kind of a lot of the rally cars are built on the Focuses and the Escorts and that sort of level of stuff.
And that was,
really nice.
I don't know rally too well, but a lot of times what they actually require is that it be a production car that you can go down and get with, minimal modifications. That's like homologation. There's I don't know all the terms well enough because I don't follow motor racing, but I definitely like that because, I mean, like you said, NASCAR is a shell of something that kind of looks like a car on top of a tube frame and a stock engine. Like
They just get a different sponsor. They slap different grill logo on it and different headlight stickers.
Yeah. Yeah, so I agree. It's much more fun to watch racing like that at a pro level with cars you can actually buy.
But I guess the RS1800 doesn't really. I mean, the review is fine and all that sort of stuff, and you should definitely go watch it. But I think it leads me to a little more interesting of a discussion: is why didn't we really get this sort of small car hot hatch sort of movement in the U.S.? Is it because we didn't have small cars? Because I think we had some.
I think that's part of it. I mean, there was no small car competition. We had a few over here, but I really think the bigger thing is muscle cars. Like, people didn't want fast little cars. They wanted fast big cars.
I guess we had muscle cars and they didn't. This is their muscle car.
We had the Mustang. We had the Camaro. We had all those. And they had, these little hot hatches and stuff. And I mean, there were some, bigger ones over there, but I can't name any off the top of my head, so there wouldn't have been many.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that's what I would attribute it to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense if you have the same amount of money, you can go down and get a... my buddy down in Houston, when I lived down there, had an old Buick that had like a 480 in it. It's like, just, this thing was as long as a city block. And it had like 10,000 cc's out of something ungodly. and you could go, and that wasn't any more expensive or less expensive. I mean, I guess it had more metal in it, but you got a lot more car than, buying an Escort. And I guess that's the point, is you go buy the one that already has the big engine as opposed to one that has a small engine that you then have to go do work to. And you didn't really have a muscle car movement in the UK.
Yeah, agree.
This is the muscle car movement. The hot hatch is the muscle car.
Now, this is shooting from the hip here because I don't really know, but it might have something to do with emissions too, because I got to imagine the standards were more disparate back then, because, I mean, we did have these monsters on the road with these engines that were like just V8s that are just unheard of these days, like bigger displacement in a V8 than you see in a V12 in a supercar these days. And they got to be, guzzling gas and spitting out not the greatest stuff. And I'm guessing it's both more expensive for gas in the UK, and they might have tighter restrictions on emissions.
I mean, they certainly do now. I'm not sure that was true back in the mid 70s. I don't think that was the case. That's something that we're gonna have to just say probably now makes sense. But back then, I think it might have just been, you couldn't market a big car to the car buyer of the United Kingdom or Europe because there's nowhere to drive it and there's nowhere to park it and there's nowhere to house it. You just don't have that. You have to park your car in front of your house in your row house on the street, and you have to drive it through, small British and European cities. And you know what? A Cutlass just ain't gonna do it. It's not. And
that's a good point. Is really like, this probably pushes deeper into history. Like, I mean, America was a big open country, and everything was built accordingly. Roads are big, houses are big. There's a lot of space between things. Like that, we had the room. Whereas, in these old world countries where things were built, a lot more with space thrifty, that you just don't have the room for muscle cars there, so they adapt.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things can be chalked up to the fact that America is big, I mean, especially in the motor industry. I think it also helps that we developed a lot closer to the time of the car than Europe did. For sure. It's, half of our history was before the car and half of it was after. Yeah. And that's not the same with, like, say, United Kingdom. It doesn't make much sense. So they had a lot of time of optimizing for horse and buggy or just walking around. And we kind of got a couple generations and we're like, hey, look at this thing. Let's make it real big.
Yeah, I am a little bitter about it because seeing these old cars, especially these old like rally cars that we just never got over here, they're pretty and they're fun, and I would love to own one. And you can import them now, but they're not cheap. You can't. No. They're not like they're not what you would call like a newspaper car. So you'd see in the classifieds anymore. These are special order. Like, you got to go find them.
Yeah, and I'm one to talk. I would love to have one of these, but I've never owned anything that wasn't an SUV or a truck in my entire life, and so
true.
I never really owned a car. I always owned trucks. I'd like to talk real quick before we go. Hammond said
the guy who owned it was there, and he's really big and scary. So I drove like Sister Wendy. I'm sorry.
Which got me thinking. Every time they say something like that, like at the beginning of the episode, they talked about the RS Motor Owners Club. And they're talking about this guy named Lee and that guy named Wayne. And then everyone was excited when they found out that his girlfriend's name was Tracy. I tried to find why that was funny. Could not find why that was funny. Nope. I guess a lot of young ruffians are named Wayne and Tracy. I don't know. I don't know where that one comes from. But Hammond says he was driving a bit like Sister Wendy, and so I looked up Sister Wendy, and here is the first few lines of the Wikipedia entry for Sister Wendy. Sister Wendy, a famous British hermit, comma, consecrated virgin, comma, art historian. So there you go.
All right.
The more you know about mid-2000s British culture.
Okay.
That's all I got, man.
No, that's not all you got.
Oh,
Bus
no.
jump.
How many buses... How many buses? How many motor bicycles did this bus jump? I have to say, they set it up poorly. The ramp, just awful. Just even without bad timing on the jump, it was just, you were setting yourself up for failure. It was a real long, low, flat ramp. You're not going to get any air. You're just going to fall off of it.
Yeah.
That being said...
Which it did.
That being said... watching the replays, it hits the beginning of the ramp, the suspension compresses, it opens back up again as it kind of bumps, it compresses again, and then it pops back up, and that's where you're going to want to jump when you're full extension on the suspension. Nope, then it compresses again, but right before it compresses fully, it gets it into the ramp, so it nosedives.
Plunks off. All right. I didn't look at that level of intricacy, but
I'm just watching it going, I don't know if this could be any worse. It could have rolled off this thing and cleared more than 3 motorcycles. And that's exactly what it got, was 3.
3 motorcycles.
Apparently Werther's Originals. Hot prize over there.
Yeah, they must have sponsored the episode very cheaply.
Werther's Originals.
My wife made me write that down, so I did so in caps.
What, Werther's Originals?
Werther's Originals!
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, man.
So that was a little anticlimactic. I'm looking forward. We got some, I gotta say, next episode, the challenge is so much better. So hold on for that one.
Yeah.
Listen / I guess watch ahead, and you'll be like, oh, this is where they actually start to have fun. So
definitely.
Yeah, that wraps it up for episode 2. So that's it until episode 3.
Thank you for listening. Please tell your friends and subscribe if you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we will talk to you all shortly.